Is there a tougher job in sports than being an NFL quarterback?
Scatter to west, right, tight. F left. 372 Y sticks east spot.
Here we go. Scatter to
west, right, tight.
Scatter to west, right, tight. F left. 382. 372.
Y sticks east spot.
Z spot. I'm already break.
Christ.
The money is great and the glory for all those at the top is unmatched, but the pressure is relentless.
I think Jalen Hurts is also like the most overrated player in football. He plays quarterback for a team that's an all-star team. They have the best O-line in football. It's not even close. Maybe the best duos at receiver in all of football. Just think if you put some other quarterbacks in Philly, you put Kyler Murray there, you'd go, damn, Kyler's amazing. Is he the MVP of football?
A team's success, a franchise's future, and an entire fan base's hopes rest squarely on your shoulders. Succeed and you're immortalized with MVPs and Super Bowl rings. Fail and you're either forgotten or worse, branded as one of the biggest busts in NFL history.
There were 9 mistakes made ahead of me, and I will make sure over the next decade or so that they will know that they made a mistake.
And in today's video, we're going to dive into the highs and lows at the position, ranking the best and worst quarterbacks from every NFL season since 2000. Now in 2000, it's going to be Rich Gannon that kicks us off. Passing for 3,430 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions for the Oakland Raiders in 2000, en route to a conference championship appearance. He was named to the first team All-Pro roster for his efforts and earned his second of 4 consecutive Pro Bowls. I mean, while Gannon was bossing it out in Oakland, Ryan Leaf was having far less success in San Diego. The third-year quarterback needed to impress his front office after missing a year due to injury in 1999. Instead, he completed just 50% of his passes for 183 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 18 interceptions, leading the Chargers to a dismal 1-8 record in the process. Add in some immaturity and off-field issues, and it should come as no surprise that the Chargers released him after that season.
Don't talk to me, all right? Knock it off!
Now in 2001, Kurt Warner was at the peak of his powers, winning his second MVP award after throwing for 4,830 yards and 36 touchdowns, which worked out at an average of over 301.9 yards per game. To put that in perspective, the next best was Peyton Manning at 258.2 yards per game. So in doing so, Warner led the Rams to a dominant 14-2 record and a Super Bowl appearance, which they lost to the New England Patriots to. On the other end of things, Chris Weinke struggled mightily as a rookie, posting 11 touchdowns and 19 interceptions, while leading the Panthers to a league-worst 1-15 record. Now, surprisingly, in 2002, Rich Gannon is up again. This time, he won the MVP award with a stunning 4,689 yards, 26 touchdowns, in which he led the Raiders to an 11-5 record and a Super Bowl appearance, which was lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Pinpoint accuracy and a complete command of the Oakland offense are why we've heard Gannon's name twice already, and why he came oh so close to winning the Raiders a Lombardi trophy. Meanwhile, Joey Harrington struggled as a rookie for the Lions, posting a 3-13 record with 2,294 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 16 interceptions. Pro Football Reference gave him a pass success rating of just 36.4% during the season as well, just to put in perspective how bad he actually was. Now in 2003, it was Peyton Manning's turn to finally get the best quarterback award from yours truly, but it's definitely not going to be the last time that we hear his name on this list today. His 4,267 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions led the Colts to a 12-4 record in an AFC Championship game, but they weren't actually enough to win him the outright MVP award. Instead, he had to share the award with Steve McNair, who posted 3,215 yards, 24 touchdowns, and just 7 interceptions, while also leading his team, the Titans, to a 12-4 record. Drew Bledsoe, on the other hand, had no such luck, leading the Bills to a disastrous 5-11 record with just 2,860 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions to his name. 1 year later, it was Peyton Manning again, improving on his previous output to pass for 4,557 yards and a whopping 49 touchdowns to just 10 interceptions. In doing so, he broke Dan Marino's single-season touchdown record and led the Colts to another 12-4 record, which he could not convert into Super Bowl glory. Nevertheless, though, he did win his second consecutive MVP award, this time outright. Meanwhile, Vinny Testaverde struggled for the Cowboys at the ripe old age of 41, finishing 6-10 while throwing for 3,532 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 20 interceptions. These interceptions were a leading factor in the Cowboys missing the playoffs after posting double-digit wins in a playoff berth the year before. And now in 2005, I honestly could go with Peyton Manning again here with the season that he had put together, but I'm actually going to change it up just because I don't want to have him on this list too many times and defer it to Carson Palmer in 2005. The Cincinnati Bengal emerged as a superstar this year, completing a league-high 67.8% of his passes for 3,836 yards and a league-leading 32 touchdowns to 12 interceptions.
Palmer, pump it. Palmer throws it up top for Henry. It's caught down the sideline. Breakaway speed. Henry down at the 5.
This was good enough to give the Bengals their first double-digit winning season in nearly 2 decades and their first division title since 1990. Someone who had far less success in the 2005 season was Alex Smith, who arguably had the worst rookie season of any 49er quarterback. He went 2-5 as a starter, and Smith threw just 1 touchdown and 11 interceptions. It was absolutely not what the San Francisco 49ers wanted to see from their first overall pick. The top spot in 2006, though, goes to Drew Brees for his 4,418 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions, which was good enough to land him a spot on the first-team All-Pro roster. It was also good enough to lead the New Orleans Saints to a division title in the NFC Championship game, which the Saints would end up losing to the Chicago Bears. Meanwhile, Andrew Walter had a season to forget in Oakland, winning just 2 of his 8 games as a starter, in which he passed for 1,677 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. Now, in 2007, we all know who the best quarterback was, and everybody say it with me, Tom Brady. His league-leading 68.9% completion rate yielded 4,806 yards, 50 touchdowns, and just 8 interceptions, propelling the Patriots to a stunning 16-0 regular season record. Unfortunately, the perfect season was ruined by Eli Manning's heroics in the Super Bowl, but Brady at least celebrated his first MVP award. At the other end of the spectrum, we have Trent Dilfer, who was struggling mightily in his final season with the 49ers. He went 0-4 as the starter actually, and only managed to pass for 7 touchdowns while throwing for 12 interceptions, and because of that, shortly retired after that season. Now in 2008, again, we are going to pass over Peyton Manning, who shockingly did win the MVP this year, and actually give it to Drew Brees. Now in 2008, Brees did whatever he could to elevate a mediocre Saints team, completing 65% of his passes for 5,069 yards and 34 touchdowns. All he could muster up was an 8-8 record, but he did celebrate his first Offensive Player of the Year award and laid the foundations for a Saints Super Bowl victory 1 year later. On the other hand, Matt Hasselbeck endured an injury-plagued nightmare for the Seahawks, going 1-6 as a starter and only managing 5 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, giving the Seahawks their worst record in nearly 2 decades. Peyton Manning did get back on the scoreboard for us in 2009, though, winning his second consecutive MVP award and his 4th total when leading the Colts to a 14-2 record. This came thanks to his 4,500 yards, 33 touchdowns, and 16 interceptions. Brees also deserves a shout out here too, but the nod goes to Manning for his league-leading 7 game-winning drives. In 2009 though, I think we're all familiar with the quarterback that we're all going to say is the worst and possibly the worst quarterback of all time, Jamarcus Russell. The man now known as the worst draft bust in NFL history concluded his dismal career in 2009, completing just 48.8% of his passes for 1,287 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions, winning just 2 of 9 games in the process. Now, to close out the first decade of the 21st century, we go back to the great Tom Brady, who was unstoppable when winning his second MVP award. He threw just 4 interceptions all year long to go along with 3,900 yards and a league-leading 36 touchdowns. That produced 14 wins in a playoff berth, but no more than that as the Patriots suffered a rare playoff loss to the Jets. Meanwhile, Jimmy Clausen had a miserable time in his rookie season with the Panthers, going 1-9 as the starter with 3 touchdowns and 9 interceptions to his name. And I mean, this gave the Panthers the #1 pick the following year, where they needed to select Cam Newton, ending Clausen's time there. The 2011 season, though, brings us to our first mention of Aaron Rodgers, who went wild when winning the MVP award with 4,643 yards, 45 touchdowns, and just 6 interceptions. Both Brees and Brady topped the 5,000-yard mark in this incredible year of quarterback play, but Rodgers' passer rating of 122.5 still stands as the best ever single-season effort, so he's the pick. Meanwhile, Vince Young struggled in his lone season with the Eagles, going 1-2 as a starter with 4 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, and this was all made worse by the fact that he started the season by saying that the Eagles had a dream team. And I feel like I've just said it again, but in 2012, we're going to go back to Peyton Manning and he's going to get our top spot here. Having just missed the entire 2011 season because of a neck injury, Manning completed a league-high 68.6% of his passes for 4,659 yards, 37 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. This was good enough to win him the Comeback Player of the Year award and slot him onto the first-team All-Pro roster at the age of 36. Unfortunately, there would be no Super Bowl glory as the Broncos did lose to the Ravens in the divisional round. But elsewhere in the NFL too, Brady Quinn was struggling as the Chiefs starter, going 1-7 and managing just 2 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, which basically that was that for Quinn as a meaningful contributor in the NFL and didn't do much after that. And I'm sorry, but again, we're going to go back to Peyton Manning. This dude is going to be on this list more. He's almost like one of the most efficient quarterbacks of all time because, again, we're going to have to go back to Peyton Manning for 2013 with the season that he put together on the Denver Broncos. He won the MVP award after setting NFL records with 5,477 yards, 55 touchdowns, and a 115 passer rating. This was good enough to lead the Broncos to a 13-3 record and a Super Bowl 48 appearance, although they were absolutely crushed by the Seahawks. And it's actually kind of funny too, because while Peyton Manning has our top spot for this year, his brother's actually going to be the one that is the worst, because the season he put together was absolutely abysmal, throwing 27 interceptions that led the league. The Giants were just 2 years removed from their Super Bowl appearance, but throwing 27 interceptions is absolutely absurd. And we're definitely going to give him the worst quarterback spot of this year. Now, in 2014, Aaron Rodgers won his second MVP award, throwing for 4,381 yards, 38 touchdowns, and just 5 interceptions, earning himself a 112.2 passer rating. He led the Packers to a 12-4 record in an NFC Championship appearance where they fell short against the Seattle Seahawks. Meanwhile, Blake Bortles endured a brutal rookie season for the Jaguars, going 3-10 as the starter while throwing 11 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. That's definitely rough going for the 3rd overall pick, who would go on to have a very confusing career with the Jaguars. The 2015 season, though, treated fans to a stunning quarterback season of the dual-threat dominance of Cam Newton, who led his Carolina Panthers to a 15-1 record. The big-bodied quarterback threw for 3,837 yards, 35 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions, while also rushing for 636 yards and 10 touchdowns on the ground. Newton kept up the good quality play all the way to Super Bowl 50, where his Panthers fell short against the Denver Broncos. And as crazy as this is going to sound too, the worst quarterback from this year is actually going to be the same quarterback Cam Newton was playing in that Super Bowl, in Peyton Manning. He registered the joint lowest passer rating for the season with 67.9 thanks to his 59.8% completion rate for 9 touchdowns and a whopping 17 interceptions. Nevertheless, the man who has featured more than anyone else in this video would get that victory in the Super Bowl 50 and go out very much on top. Now, a new name that takes the spot in 2016 was Matt Ryan, earning his one and only MVP award thanks to a brilliant 4,944 yard, 38 touchdowns, 7 interception effort. His passer rating of 117.1 led the league and still stands as the 8th best of all time. At the bottom of the pile, however, was Ryan Fitzpatrick, who went 3-8 as a starter for the Jets, completing 56.6% of his passes for 2,710 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 17 interceptions. His contract was voided soon after the conclusion of that 2016 season, making him a free agent at the age of 34. The boss of the 2017 season, though, was Tom Brady, who led the Patriots to a 13-3 record off the back of a 4,577 yard, 32 touchdown, and 8 interception season. This was good enough to win him his third and final MVP award, and he would then go on to set a Super Bowl record with 505 passing yards in Super Bowl 52. However, it would come in a losing effort as Nick Foles and the Philadelphia Eagles stunned the Patriots. The worst quarterback in that 2017 season, though, was Deshaun Kaiser, who was just an absolutely abysmal Cleveland Browns quarterback. I mean, he went 1-15, he had a bunch of interceptions, and just truthfully looked terrible that season. Like, that's really all we need to know about him. 2018, though, we're definitely going to have to give our best quarterback award to Patrick Mahomes, who ended up winning the MVP in his first year as the true starter for the Chiefs. It was thanks to a 5,097 yard, 50 touchdown, and 12 interception effort, and in doing so, he led the Chiefs to a 12-4 record in an AFC Championship appearance, which saw the Chiefs fall to the New England Patriots. At the opposite end of the spectrum, we have Nathan Peterman, who needed just 4 games to throw 7 interceptions and rule himself out of a job for the remainder of the year. Now, following the emergence of Patrick Mahomes in 2018 was more of a changing of the guard, or just kind of another guard showing up, with our best quarterback award going to Lamar Jackson in 2019. Like, I mean, he absolutely electrified the NFL and won the MVP award in his second season in the league, passing for 3,127 yards, 36 touchdowns, and just 6 interceptions. He did even more damage with his legs, rushing for 1,260 yards and 7 touchdowns, which is the most rushing yards ever by a quarterback. A 14-2 record gave the Ravens an AFC North win, but their playoff journey was ended by a shocking loss to the Tennessee Titans. Someone who didn't come even close to playoff football, though, is Josh Rosen, who all but confirmed the end of his career when losing all 3 games as a starter, in which he passed for just 567 yards, 1 touchdown, and 5 interceptions. 2020, though, marked the beginning of a stunning new chapter for Aaron Rodgers, motivated by drafting of Jordan Love to be his replacement. He responded in fine fashion, winning the MVP award with a stunning 4,299 yards, 48 touchdowns, and just 5 interceptions. This gave him a passer rating of 121.5, which is second on the all-time leaderboard behind his own effort from 2011. Carson Wentz, though, is definitely going to be the unfortunate holder of the worst quarterback award for 2020, winning only 3 of his 8 starts for the Philadelphia Eagles, in which he tossed 16 touchdowns and a league-leading 15 interceptions. This poor play paved the way for Jalen Hurts to take over, and from there on, there was really no looking back. In 2021, though, we're definitely going to have to go back to Aaron Rodgers again, with the Green Bay Packers quarterback winning his second consecutive MVP award, and once again proving he had plenty left in the tank. While leading the Packers to a 13-3 record, Rodgers completed 68.9% of his passes for 37 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. However, the postseason pain would continue as the Packers were defeated by the 49ers. Zach Wilson definitely has to go down as our worst quarterback for 2021, completing a miserable rookie season in which he completed just 55.6% of his passes for 2,334 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. The second overall pick looked absolutely helpless as he led the New York Jets to a 3-10 record in his 13 starts, while also giving up a league-high 370 yards lost, 2 sacks in that season. In 2022, though, Patrick Mahomes reaffirmed his dominance, winning his second MVP award after throwing for 5,250 yards and 41 touchdowns, all without his top weapon from the previous year, Tyreek Hill. He led the Chiefs to a 14-3 record and a Super Bowl 57 victory over the Eagles, earning Super Bowl MVP honors despite playing on an injured ankle. And while in this season you definitely could argue that Zach Wilson could again go down as the worst quarterback, I'm actually going to go ahead and give it to Russell Wilson. Like, he was just the focus of a massive trade from Seattle, and having just been signed to an eye-watering big deal, Wilson could only lead the Broncos to a 4-11 record as a starter, passing for 3,524 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions in the process. There definitely are quarterbacks with worse stats than him on the year, but the context surrounding his arrival in Denver makes him the pick for the worst quarterback in 2022. Lamar Jackson makes it back onto the list in 2023 thanks to his second MVP winning performance. This time he passed for 3,678 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions, while rushing for another 821 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. He once again led the Ravens to a division title and the 1 seed in the AFC, but a heartbreaking loss to the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game denied him another shot at a Super Bowl. For the worst quarterback of 2023 though, it has to be the first overall pick in Bryce Young, who led the Carolina Panthers to a 2-15 record while throwing just 11 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. To make matters worse too, the man picked behind him, CJ Stroud, looked like a surefire stud when leading the Houston Texans to the playoffs. And finally, despite not winning the MVP award, the best quarterback in the 2024 season has to be Joe Burrow, who led the league with 4,918 yards and 43 touchdowns. Defensive woes meant that the team could only muster up a 9-8 record, but had there been another couple of wins in there, Burrow would have been in with a great shot for the MVP award. At the other end of the spectrum, we have Anthony Richardson, whose 61.6 passer rating lagged well behind the rest of the NFL. In his 11 games as a starter, Richardson completed just 47.7% of his passes for 1,814 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. He did add 499 yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground, but the inconsistencies in the passing game are a cause for major concern around Richardson. And if you want to see what the NFL community actually thinks about Shedeur Sanders, then click this video right here.